In the early years of the Cold War, the Soviet Union believed one thing with absolute certainty. No enemy aircraft could fly over its territory and survive. Their air defenses were vast, layered, and constantly expanding. Radar stations covered thousands of kilometers. Missile batteries stood ready. Fighter squadrons were on alert day and night. In Moscow, military planners were confident. The skies above the USSR were sealed. And then, without warning, something appeared where nothing was supposed to exist. High above Soviet airspace, beyond the reach of fighters and missiles, an American aircraft was flying calmly and silently. It wasn't fast. It wasn't armed. It didn't need to be. It simply flew higher than anything the Soviet Union could touch. The aircraft was the U-2, and its presence would shatter one of the greatest illusions of Soviet military power. At first, the radar operators didn't understand what they were seeing. Blips appeared at extreme altitude, far above commercial traffic, far above known military aircraft. The readings made no sense. Some officers assumed equipment malfunction. Others suspected atmospheric interference. But the signal kept returning, flight after flight, following clear paths deep into Soviet territory. Something was up there, and it wasn't supposed to be. During the 1950s, intelligence was the most valuable weapon in the Cold War. The United States needed to know how many bombers the Soviets had, where missile sites were located, and how fast their nuclear capabilities were advancing. Satellites didn't exist yet. Human spies were unreliable and often captured. The answer had to come from the sky, but flying over the Soviet Union was considered suicide until American engineers decided to break the rules of aviation. The U-2 was designed with one goal in mind: altitude. It didn't look like a fighter. Its wings were long and thin, almost glider-like. Its structure was lightweight, fragile by combat standards. But what it could do had never been done before. It could fly above 70,000 feet, higher than Soviet interceptors, higher than anti-aircraft guns, and initially higher than surface-to-air missiles. At that altitude, the U-2 was untouchable. When the first U-2 flights began over Soviet territory, they caused quiet panic inside Soviet air defense command centers. Radar screens showed a target that refused to behave like any aircraft they knew. Fighters were scrambled only to report that they could not climb high enough. Missile operators prepared launches, but their systems were not designed for such extreme altitudes. The aircraft was there, visible on radar, but unreachable. It was the most frustrating kind of enemy, one you can see but cannot fight. For the United States, this was a technological triumph. For the Soviet Union, it was deeply unsettling. Every flight meant American intelligence was photographing air bases, missile silos, industrial centers, and nuclear facilities. The most secret locations in the USSR were no longer secret. Soviet leadership knew this, even if the public did not. Each successful U-2 mission was a silent message. American technology had surpassed Soviet defenses. Inside Soviet command rooms, frustration turned into urgency. Engineers were ordered to accelerate missile development. Radar systems were upgraded. New doctrines were written. The existence of the U-2 forced the Soviet Union to admit a dangerous truth to itself. Its airspace was not secure. The psychological impact was enormous. In a Cold War defined by perception and deterrence, being unable to stop an intruder was a blow to national pride. American pilots who flew the U-2 understood the stakes. They flew alone, unarmed, relying entirely on altitude for survival. If the aircraft failed, there would be no rescue. If captured, the political consequences would be severe. Yet mission after mission, they flew, calmly, methodically, above the reach of Soviet power. For years, the U-2 remained almost mythical. Soviet defenses improved, but the aircraft continued to operate. Each flight pushed the limits of technology and geopolitics. The United States gained unprecedented insight into Soviet military capabilities, helping prevent miscalculations that could have led to nuclear war. Ironically, the very aircraft that humiliated Soviet defenses also helped stabilize the Cold War by revealing the truth behind exaggerated threats. Eventually, the gap closed. In 1960, a U-2 was finally shot down by a new generation of Soviet surface-to-air missiles. The pilot Francis Gary Powers survived and was captured. The incident caused a global political crisis. But even that moment confirmed what had already been proven. The Soviets had to fundamentally change their air defense systems just to counter a single American aircraft. The legacy of the U-2 goes far beyond espionage. It demonstrated that dominance in warfare is not always about firepower. Sometimes it is about intelligence, engineering, and the ability to operate where the enemy believes it is impossible. The lessons learned from the U-2 directly shaped the development of stealth aircraft, our satellites, and modern reconnaissance systems. From the perspective of the Soviet radar operator staring at an unreachable target, the U-2 represented something terrifying. It was not just an aircraft. It was proof that the United States could see everything. Proof that borders drawn on maps meant nothing to technology. Proof that the balance of power was shifting in the sky. Decades later, the U-2 is still flying, updated, modernized, and operational. Few aircraft in history can claim such longevity. Fewer still can claim such impact. It forced an empire to adapt. It exposed weaknesses hidden behind propaganda. And it reminded the world that in the Cold War, the most powerful weapon was knowledge. The U-2 did not drop bombs. It did not fire missiles. Yet it flew straight into the heart of the Soviet Union and came back untouched, again and again. And for the men watching helplessly from below, that silence in the sky was louder than any explosion.